So people think that that is discipline, this white knuckling, grit your teeth, put a piece of chocolate cake in front of me after I've been starving and stressed out all day and I'm not allowed to eat it. Like that's what people think discipline is. But it's not that at all. In fact, what discipline is simply putting a level 10 effort into your level 10 problem in life. And what that means is figuring out what you want to achieve, ignoring everything else, and then building a path to achieve your goals and dreams. I needed discipline when I was younger. And so I didn't want to be that person, but I also didn't want to have this life where it was unenjoyable, where I was like the monk in the Da Vinci Code, beating myself at night. So what I decided to identify were systems. Instead of thinking, how can I white knuckle my way through life, living on the edge of willpower where it's a grind every day, how can I set up effortless discipline systems in my life that make it hard to do the bad thing, easier to do the good thing, and puts me in a community of people who support me and hold me accountable to doing the right actions.
What's up? Welcome back. Vikram Deol here. I am super pumped to have our guest on today. As we know, success loves speed. Play off the shirt. If you're not watching this live on YouTube, you should, because the shirt makes a lot of sense. But I met this individual back, it must have been 2019 when I was working with Bedros Keuilian and all those crazy cats and doing the project and, like trying to figure out what this next chapter of life was. And when I met this individual, there was a couple of things that popped out at me that I was like, okay, this dude's kind of figured it out. Because we all need structure. Like I talked to my buddy downstairs at the coffee shop, and it's like every day the same thing, right? We wear the same clothes, we drink the same coffee, we sit in the same seat, we have the same gym, right? And he goes, there's structure that creates that consistency and that momentum. But I said to him, he's like, you seem more structured than me. And I said, I like to create chaos and structure. So some days I go to yoga at 7 o'clock. Some days I do cycling. Some days I work out with the trainer. Some days I just do like stretching at my house. But that 7 o'clock hour is for physical movement. And he's like, oh, I like that. Right. And it's just a system and a process to have a little bit of variety and momentum. What I love about our guest today is that he has been able to create structures, because at the end of the day, nobody wants discipline. Nobody wants structure. Nobody wants to follow like the same routine, eat the same thing, drink the same thing. Like it sounds incredibly boring, but boring is what makes money. So I get to, I'm pumped because I've been wanting to jam with you for a while now. I'm pumped to bring my buddy, Craig Ballantyne, all the way from Vancouver, BC, onto our show today to talk about the dark side and the fun side of discipline. Craig, welcome, brother.
Yeah,
How are you, man?
I'm great. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to simplifying this complex and sometimes deeply disturbing topic of discipline for people.
I don't know that I've ever heard anybody say this is going to be fun when they talk about the word discipline. So like most people like discipline, it's restrictive. Right? When people hear the word discipline, it's what are the things that I can't do? Oh, I can't do my favorite stuff anymore. Right. And I think a lot of times, at least for people I've worked with and the people we coach and train, they think discipline is going to be disruptive to everything. Like, oh, now if I do this, I can no longer eat an ice cream bar. Right. If I want to be healthy, I can no longer have my favorite Rocky Road ice cream or, a slice of pizza ever again. And I think it's actually the opposite. I think for people that have discipline, it's actually more enjoyable, because instead of you now always eating and binging because you think somebody's taking something away from you, you structure your life that you're like, I earned it, not because my heart's beating. I earned it because I actually did activity through the week. So now when you have that slice of pizza, you actually really enjoy it. You're like, man, I worked really hard. This actually tastes good. Right. And I think the opposite is true of the world, where they're so used to like, what do you call it? Instant gratification.
Sure.
Right. Like people are so used to instant gratification, their cell phones, their technology, that if you ask them to meditate for 5 minutes, to just sit down and meditate, they'll say they can't do it before they even try it.
That's true.
which is wild, right? Like it's like you literally sit on the shitter for an extra 45 minutes scrolling Instagram, and you're telling me that you can't sit down with your eyes closed for 5 minutes? I don't know, man. So let's jump into it, dude. So how did you first like what took you down the path of wanting to be this type of human that is teaching high performance, but teaching it kind of like through a methodology that's a little different that most people kind of run away from?
Yeah, great question. So I'm a lazy person. I'm very lazy. I'm very unmotivated, and like most people, I would love to wake up and eat chocolate cake for breakfast and sit around watch college football all day. There is a part of me inside that would not be satisfied with that, and so
Fair enough.
so, when people think of discipline, if everyone who's not driving a car right now, if you were to close your eyes and to think of discipline, what person would pop up? You would think of somebody with, like this Viking looking dude with a long beard, some tattoos on their chest, arising from an ice bath with an axe in their hand. Like, that,
Pedros.
yeah, well, yeah, right. Bedros. Bedros is a sweet, cuddly bear, and he just has this persona on Instagram that
He really is the nicest dude out there.
he seriously is. So people think that that is discipline, this white knuckling, grit your teeth, put a piece of chocolate cake in front of me after I've been starving and stressed out all day and I'm not allowed to eat it. Like that's what people think discipline is.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
but it's not that at all. In fact, what discipline is simply putting a level 10 effort into your level 10 problem. And what that means is figuring out what you want to achieve, ignoring everything else, and then building a path to achieve your goals and dreams. So that's what we talk about in the dark side of discipline, because discipline can be both a savior and a servant to them. Or it can be a savior and it can make you a servant. And so I've lived this both ways because I needed discipline when I was younger. I was a binge drinker, binge eater, binge watcher of television, binge video gamer, all the stuff, every bad habit that most people have had. I never smoked cigarettes, did drugs, but I had all the other bad habits that most people can relate to. And so I didn't want to be that person. But I also didn't want to have this life where it was unenjoyable, where I was like the monk in the Da Vinci Code, beating myself at night, if anybody remembers that movie. And so what I decided to identify were systems. So instead of thinking, how can I white knuckle my way through life, living on the edge of willpower where it's a grind every day, how can I set up effortless discipline systems in my life that make it hard to do the bad thing, easier to do the good thing, and puts me in a community of people who support me and hold me accountable to doing the right actions. And, you're providing quite a community for your people. And, that community aspect is probably one of the most important things. Almost everything that I've achieved in life has come from the network and relationships that I have. I got in really great shape because I had a training partner I didn't want to let down. I built my businesses because I met people who showed me how to make money, who told me that I had higher potential and who held me to that higher potential. And I was able to meet my wife because when I couldn't meet my wife, I asked for help and somebody introduced me to my. So everything good in my life has come from connection. And James Clear talks a lot in Atomic Habits about putting a lot of friction in the way of the bad habit. So for example, when I was a binge drinker, I had to get rid of all the alcohol in the house. I had to stop hanging around my friends at bars and at sporting events where they were drinking. And I had to remove toxic people from my life who did nothing but drag me down to drink. Now, there were some good friends of mine who were drinkers, and then I had to move on into the second phase, which is make the good habit as smooth as possible, as easy as possible, grease the groove so that your good choices are very easy to do. And for that, I just had to plan and prepare like, hey, um, you know, best friends of mine, let's go and do a non-drinking activity on a Saturday morning. So we maintain our powerful relationship, but not in a negative environment. And then I had to find people who didn't drink, like Sharon Srivatsa. And, Bedros doesn't drink now either. I don't drink now either. But, he wasn't much of a drinker when I first met him. And so I started to shift my really good friends to non-drinkers. And all of a sudden, I went from being a binge drinker to now I have not only I don't need discipline not to drink. I am a non-drinker. That's my identity. That's my high
Right.
standard. And so now there's not a single bit of willpower that I need to expend when I'm at a dinner with a bunch of people, even if they're drinking and giving me peer pressure. I don't need discipline. I don't need willpower because I built systems that help me change my identity and set higher standards. And that's like the easy way to discipline.
I got a question for you, man.
Mhm.
Do you think that everybody is addictive? Like all personalities are addictive? Like,
I don't think all personalities are addictive. I think that everybody is given something that has been designed to be addictive, such as their
okay.
phone, alcohol, and I don't like if you're an alcoholic, you don't have an addictive personality. You have an addictive genetic, predisposition. That's not your personality. That's a genetic predisposition in many cases. And alcohol is a chemical which has, naturally is addictive. And your phone has been designed by the smart. We sent our smartest generation of people and brought in the smartest generation of immigrants and assigned them the task of making us addicted to our phone. That's what we did this with the smartest generation. And so if you think you don't have an addictive,
Even the blue light that's inside of all of our technology, instead of a different color, it actually lowers your brain's ability to defend itself against the addiction of it.
right. And so
It keeps
you don't have an addictive personality because you're addicted to your phone. You have an addictive substance in your hand, which happens to be a phone, and it's designed to be addictive. And it's designed by multiple thousands of people smarter than you. No offense, you don't have a PhD from MIT. These guys
Yeah,
do.
no,
And
I am the dumb guy in the room. I'm clearly okay with that too.
right. And so it's not your personality. It's the thing. It's the enemy, and it's so much stronger than you. Now, if you play by their rules, you're always going to lose. The way you win is by setting up better systems. And the systems include using something like the Opal app. It's OPAL. It has 4 million downloads, a 4.8-star review on the App Store. And you can use it to block access to things on your phone. So no YouTube, no social media, no text messages, no phone calls, whatever you want, no email. You can pick and choose, and you can start to build a fence around yourself. So I grew up on a farm, and what you do on a farm is you build fences to keep your animals in and to keep the predators out. And it's the same mentality we have to go around with whatever things destroy us, whether it's Netflix, whether it's our phone, whether it's our email, whether it's alcohol. I have clients who go to the extremes of giving their assistant their Netflix password so that the assistant changes it on a Sunday night and does not give them their password back till Friday night. And I know it's like funny, like, I'd never do that. But listen,
No, it's great.
if you watch 4 episodes of Netflix and you stay up an hour and a half past your bedtime and you hit snooze in the morning and your entire day is ruined because you're, chasing
Yeah,
your tail, do it. And same with Gmail, have somebody change your password, get the password back at the end of the day. So you don't do that. And I've had people do it with Tinder, like younger guys that I've coached over the years. They had somebody change their Tinder password on a Sunday night and they didn't give it back to them till Thursday night. So all of these are just systems and building fences around ourselves. And you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. But one of the biggest systems is the connection. So if somebody looked up to you, Vic, and said, you know what, I don't want to let you down. And they told you what they were trying to accomplish. Like, for example, that guy in the coffee shop, if he said to you, hey, listen, I just made 7 o'clock my exercise hour. And, that's a great idea. And you saw him every single day, he might not, be your best friend in the world, but he's made this promise to you. And if you're a person of integrity, when you make a promise to somebody, you don't want to let them down. And so now, even without any other systems, he's going to make that 7 o'clock hour his exercise. But
absolutely.
if you throw in a few other systems to it, it's invincible. And again, this for everybody listening who when they first heard the word discipline cringed at it. Now you can see, oh man, I can leverage this. I can, even if I've gone through life with negative self-talk around the idea of discipline, that I'm not a disciplined person, or I can never be on time, or I can never lose weight, or whatever you can't do that you've said you can't do. You're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel that if I just tweak some of the systems in my life, this thing almost becomes automatic. The decision is made for me so that it's so easy. I can slide right into it. And I might start to change my belief in myself. When I change my belief in myself, I change my identity. And whoa, then you're a whole new person. You're 2.0, 3.0, 4.0.
So, you know, the number one thing when I'm talking to people that I work with, or, they're on a sales call with us, they say, Vic, we're working on our systems and our processes, right?
Mhm.
Like you probably hear that a lot too when you're talking to people and you start coaching a new client and they're like, yeah, we just need to upgrade our systems and our processes, right? But they actually don't have any concept of that terminology. It's industry buzzwords.
Yeah, most people in our group say, "I don't have any." They are okay with admitting we just don't have any. And it
Right.
is chaos.
So I'm a believer of you, right? Like if you don't go to sleep early on Sunday morning, you've set Monday up for failure because what you do at night is what dictates what you do in the morning. And so if you eat a big crappy meal and have one extra beer, right? And it could just be one beer. For
Mhm.
me, it's one beer. And the next morning I feel like crap.
Yeah, that's exactly
I
why I
don't
quit.
need, yeah, like I don't need to get drunk, Craig. Like dude, bro, I have a beer, man. And I like one beer. And the next day, my Whoop tells me that I've had a beer because my HRV is lower. My sleep isn't as good. I sweat. I'm hot. My body's like trying to get this stuff out as fast as humanly possible. And then the second thing that happens is that day, I just don't feel super great.
That's exactly why I quit. I had a drink. It was in November of 2021. I was in Orange County with this guy, Jason Capital. I can't remember the name of the
Oh,
restaurant.
yeah.
We went to
I know where
a
you
really
guys were
nice
at.
restaurant in Newport Beach, and I
Yeah.
had one drink. And I don't have a Whoop, but I used to wear an Aura ring. I don't wear it anymore because it's told me how bad I am, and I don't need to hear it anymore. I got 3 kids. I got 3 kids. They wake me up in the middle of the night. I don't need to be told I don't have good sleep. But the next day I was so tired. And I was like, I feel worse than, 10 years ago when I had 6 beers in a night. And I was like, that's my end point. And then I heard this really great quote the next day. It said, better to be 100% out than 99% out. It's easier to be 100% out. And it really, truly is because, again, there's no willpower wasted when I go out with somebody and I go, should I or shouldn't I? I know I shouldn't. I'm going to feel horrible tomorrow. I just go, no, I'm not a drinker. So, whatever.
When you're working with people, right? I think you're right. I don't think I think some people are genetically predisposed to having more addictive
Sure.
personality traits than others. But I think we all have learned addiction through society, right? We've all learned how to the feeling of addiction, right? As Joe Dispenza talks about, everything we do is a feeling, right? So we feel like doing something or we feel like we don't want to do something. And then that's what causes us to either want to do it or not want to do it. So how do we step back, right? Because everybody starts out with good intentions for the year, right? I talk to realtors every day. Like my niche is real estate
Mhm.
agents. Your niche is entrepreneurs, small business owners, small to medium sized business owners, a lot of fitness people, I would assume in your world, right? Just from
Not as much anymore. We've kind of
not as
moved
much
out
anymore.
of that world,
Just
but we do, we do have several 7-figure agents in our group.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like most agents, when you say seven figures, they're thinking that's like a sales volume number, not like an income earning
Oh,
potential, right? But like you're talking about seven figure earners, right? I was a
yeah. We're
seven
talking. I
figure
mean,
earner.
they got like 20 listings of like their income is based off these like so it's 7-figure income. And
Yeah.
and it's
Like their
because
GCI is a million
they have
plus.
20 plus listings of houses that are like 7 to 10 million bucks. So
Yeah.
those are our folks. So
Yeah. I mean, we did when I was actively selling real estate, our last year, we just, we did about almost 2 mil. Um, and there was a lot of systems, right? There's a lot of processes. Everything was organized, right? How do you take a listing? How do you work with the buyer? It was all organized, right? My days were a little bit crazy, but
sure.
I woke up at 5, probably like 4:30, got to the gym at 5, worked out, try to steam, try to like, sauna the alcohol from the night before out, right?
Yeah.
Jumped into the pool, did a couple of laps to try to get some like blood through my body, went to the office and I'd be at the office by about 7 o'clock. We role played for 45 minutes. The team would get on the phone. I would do my follow-ups. It was a system for
Yeah.
success. But I built that discipline as a 17-year-old when I sold Cutco knives.
Did you know John Rulin? Yeah. That's a crazy story about him, and I'm just reading his new book. So he wrote Giftology a couple of years ago. And for
Yeah.
everybody listening, like John died last year at age 44.
He
Unbel-
passed away.
you didn't know that?
Oh, no, no. I've been out of that space for 25 years,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So John Rulin is like He was famous in that world. He was famous in the EO, YPO. He died at
Yeah.
44 years old with 4 daughters, on
Oh my.
vacation, and,
Oh.
probably had a heart attack. It's crazy because he was such a nice guy. Um,
Oh my God.
but, he was like one of the top guys in Cutco and stuff like that. And he has this book called Giftology. And then he had another book that was just about done before he passed away called Beyond Giftology, which I just bought and was just released this week. And I'm going through it. And, I mean, there's a lot of lessons there. First of all, don't take anything for granted.
Right. Right.
All the cliches, but everybody, like his whole thing was like, you can get so much out of word of mouth and just, be more generous and that type of stuff. And it's worthwhile. If somebody likes the idea of, and has had some success of generating clients through gifts and referral strategies, check it out. But,
Cutco was really big with real estate agents, where you'd put your name and stuff on the logos, and
oh,
it's
dude,
actually been
so I was in a mastermind with, Dan Fleischman, Joel Marion, and John was a member of it. And they sent every member the knives. And so it's really funny because I have these super sharp, dangerous knives, and they have all motivational quotes on it. So it's like, be super generous is like one of them on the sharpest knife. And I'm like, it's almost kind of ironic as I, almost cut my hand in half here. That
well, it's funny is because I used to sell those to realtors. And I can actually remember I'm living in like the nicest building in Bellevue, right down the street from you.
oh, nice.
And yeah, I used to live in Bellevue. I was in the Bravern in downtown Bellevue, where like the Neiman Marcus and the John Howies are. And I'm sitting there and I'm selling to a real estate agent. And I'm thinking as I'm giving him his like $2,000 order of knives, which has nothing to do with discipline, but it does has to do with some of the business still discipline and building raving fans. I gave him this like $2,000 order, and he looked at him. And when he looked at him, he opened it. He worked with Remax, and it had his name, the little balloon, and his logo and his email on it. And I could see at that moment, it didn't click for me for about 6 months, but I could see at that moment, he was like, this is the worst gift ever. And it's not because of the product. It was because of the intention behind the product, because the intention behind the product was wrong. The intention behind the product was, this is about me, not about the client. And I remember when I was flipping a house with my ex-wife. We were remodeling a house that we had bought for ourselves. And I saw one of my clients who I just sold them this like 4,000 square footer. And there was just the three of them. It was him, his wife, and his daughter. And we and I got along so well. And I'm trying to avoid them in the Home Depot because I haven't showered in 2 days. I'm living in the Red Lion. I haven't showered in 2 days. I'm like literally like with a cart with like 3 toilets, like 4 faucets, and I stink, bro. Like I literally stink. I haven't showered, and they're used to seeing me in a suit and tie, right? Like my system for sales is you show up ready to win. And so I'm like avoiding them. And then I hear the wife over there talking to the daughter. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to dip down through aisle 11. And then I see Stefan, and I'm like, oh, he's like big. And he's this French guy. He's like 7 foot tall. He's like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, Jesus. And he's like, why do you smell so bad? And I was like, I told him the story. He started laughing. He's like, where do you live? And I'm like, no, just like at the hotel. He's like, you live in a hotel and I have a 4,000 square foot house? He's like, you're moving in with me. And I gave him a set of these gifts, right? Because I thought that's what you do. And he never pulled them out of the kitchen cupboard because it had my name on it.
Yeah. Okay.
And afterwards, I realized like when you gift for them, not for you, because they'll always remember where the gift came from. You never have to remind somebody where a great gift came from, but you have to remind them where a bad gift is hiding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a really great lesson. And I know that exactly what you said is true. Like when you have a gift, like somebody gave me a Rolex once, and I don't wear it, but because I don't just wear watches. But whenever I pulled it out and showed it to somebody, I started here's this Rolex that was given to me by, and I think that's exactly the truth. So roundabout story here for everybody is when you gift for the person, gift generously, as if it's not anything needs to be done in return.
So
you built the systems. You built the systems when you were 17 for success because
but like
that's what you gotta do.
I'm very disciplined, right? Like I think my household is disciplined. My dad's disciplined. My grandparents were farmers, right? The levee breaks. Grandpa's the one out there at 2 o'clock in the morning before all the other workers got there, plugging the hole, and then they finished the job, right? Because we were on the farm or close to the farm typically, and they were, half an hour, 45 minutes away. And so they got there quickly, but by the time they got there, we had plugged the holes. Like the calluses on my hand are from grandpa when I was like in third grade. I'm doing my best to shovel dirt. Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not good at it, but I'm doing my best with him. I grew up with discipline. I grew up watching men very disciplined. My grandma every day, 3 times a day, vacuumed. The house was vacuumed with lines because they lived on a farm. And she was like, I don't, she grew up with like this mindset that the house has to be perfect. And she had 7 children and
Wow.
14 grandkids, right? So the vacuum just like, it just ran all day long. I don't know
Yeah.
how, like she must have had stock in like Hoover or something, because the vacuums would run every day, all day long, right? We just grew up in a world where discipline was kind of a part of our
It
life.
was a
But
standard. It was a standard. And so,
how do we become standards? Like, how do we take somebody who left? Cause a lot of like, I think a lot of our clients, they get into business and they come from corporate America.
Mhm.
So they were unhappy at their job, or they lost their job, or something happened, and they didn't have a great experience where they're at. And it's not because maybe the job was the worst. It might maybe it's because their standards were low. But then they get into this world where now they're responsible for everything and every decision. And it's so overwhelming. It's not their fault, but it's so overwhelming that they just shut down.
It's great. Great question. And so it is entirely about connection, because if those people, like if the individual real estate agent was able to and lucky enough to spend 7 days shadowing Sharon, or with like people who operate at high levels. Like most people don't even know what they are capable of. Most people don't know what other people actually accomplish. And so, we only see on the outside, like, oh yeah, this guy, I see him, presenting a bunch of times, but they don't understand the effort and the systems and the standards that go in to everything that a very high performer does. So they have no concept of it. So first we have to introduce them to the concept. And the way you do this is by getting in the rooms. You get to the events. You have to, the first discipline you have to take is that you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone and go and be around other high performers. And this will be a little bit of, it could be a little bit of a squeeze financially. It could be a little bit uncomfortable based on, the other responsibilities you have. But you have to see that there are people that operate at a higher level. And then the interesting thing is that the more time you spend with these people that operate at a higher level, you realize you're more similar to that person than you are different, right? Like if you hang around
What do you mean?
Sharon, like he's a great guy. He is really smart, but
Yeah.
he puts his pants on, 2 legs at a time, and he
Are you sure
has,
he doesn't just hover into him? I think he just hovers into him.
yeah, maybe, but
So
there's
why
so much.
why is that important from a psychology standpoint, right? Because like I could tell you the first time I met Sharon was about 14 years ago. I knew there was something about him that was different, but we were similar, right? He still made dirty jokes. He still cracked up at the stupid shit we said, right? Like when we would walk around. But I knew there was something different about how he operated his life, right? His operating system is like iOS 37, and I'm operating at iOS like 22, or maybe like -3. I don't know where I was at, but I remember I just plugged in and I tagged into him. Just kind of like how I met you. I'm like, I'm just gonna bug shit out of this guy. He's either gonna tell me to leave him alone, or is he like, you're weird enough and likable enough that I'm gonna like hang out with you, right? Like one or the other is gonna happen. You're either
Right.
gonna push me away, but I don't remember any of the content from that event. I don't even remember the other people I met from the event. I do remember exactly where I was doing when I met Sharon,
Mhm.
and everything else is a blur. Is it more important to be in the room around the people and seeing that you're the similar stuff from a psychology standpoint? Or is it more important to try to grab all the content, the 40 hours of content that is going to be delivered in 17 minutes, and try to like what, I know it's a balance, but like for me, what do you like? I'll give you my answer afterwards, but
Sure.
what do you think is the most valuable thing when these people go into the room and they see like they're starting to expand? What do you think's the most important thing for somebody who maybe has never been exposed to this type of a lifestyle before.
Right. So in terms of content, there are basic fundamentals in your industry that probably haven't changed in 100, 200, 1,000 years, right? Buy low, sell high. If you want to be a real estate investor, and it's like, treat the person with respect, show up on time. Like, none of this stuff is rocket surgery. No offense, but I was a personal trainer. It wasn't rocket surgery. Real estate, it's not rocket surgery. So you don't need to be a PhD in physics. What you need to do is understand how successful people operate. So if we all agree, and I'm sure everybody has heard the quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So the people that come into this from corporate just spent a decade, 2 decades in corporate where there's not a lot of high performers. They're nice people who live for the weekends, who want to watch the Super Bowl, do fantasy football, do March Madness, do all this stuff that the average American does. And the average American, I love America. I love Americans. I love the average
Well, you're
American.
probably going to be the 51st state, so you should love us a lot more.
Yeah. We'll put a little snow at the border and you guys will turn back. So, so, so anyways, like, you just spent all your time at average. Now you get into this world where if you don't ascend into a group of higher performers, of people who see the world in a different way, of people who operate with speed, who operate with a higher level of integrity, who, make a promise, keep a promise, who operate on a higher level of generosity, who operate on a higher level of vibration and connection. That's the difference. It's just the way that we operate is different. And it means more planning and preparation. Like, I love the way you showed up to win every single day. Awesome. You had it figured out, because that showing up is a big part of the battle. I'm not going to say it's like half the battle or 80% of the battle, whatever, but it's a big part of the battle that most people don't even show up on time. It's embarrassing to the industry. And I am like singling out the real estate industry because I have bought houses and I've found it embarrassing the way that some of these agents have portrayed themselves. So when you are around people who are never late and who never operate below a 10 out of 10 standard, and if you spend enough time with them, that will rub off on you and you will start to ascend because you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so if you spend your life in, I use the phrase lonely entrepreneur island, because, people come to my events who are entrepreneurs and then they go back home where nobody else in their tight social circle is an entrepreneur. And all the information, all the excitement that they got at our event, even the blueprint, step-by-step blueprint we give them, when they go home, there's a decay. That energy decays because their brother-in-law wants to go golfing or watch sports on the weekends. But that an hour on a Saturday morning spent on working in the business will keep you going, but everybody drags you down. And so if you are always on that lonely realtor island where you have ambition and nobody else around you has ambition, you're going to get sucked down. You'll never get out of that doom loop. And you have to go and be around those people who operate faster, better. And again, Maya Angelou had this great quote when she was alive. It's people will forget what you did, people will forget what you said, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is a version of it, right? Like Sharon made you feel a different way. And Sharon ascended because, he was once a kid in India. And then, he went and got his tennis training, which ascended him a bit. But when he got into Goldman and did those, I forget how many calls and that training in that boiler room kind of setting, that's, I think, was like a key component of his life. And I'm not sure if he realizes it. That set him up because it was so intense that it put him on a higher level than most people.
Bro, like when I laugh because like I know the moments in my life where I know where I met you, right? It was Empire. It was Bedros's last event. I know where I met Bedros. It was Empire. Sharon's like, hey, you got to meet this dude. I was so dumbfounded. Like, I hate pictures, but I'm like, I want to take a picture with these guys because I don't want to forget who they are and how they've helped me feel about myself and my level of output and input, right? It wasn't to post on the internet and be like, oh, hey, I'm hanging out with this cool. I didn't even know who you guys were. I just knew you guys were buddies of Sharon. That to me was all I needed to know, that I wanted to put more time into you guys because of Sharon. And so, like the fact that the fact that that is so fundamental and the way you laid it out makes so much sense why mastermind communities work better. Like I'm not a big believer anymore in one-on-one coaching. I think one-on-one coaching is great when you have some mindset beliefs that you need personal attention that you don't want to share vulnerably because they're harder to let go of. And I think for those things, one-on-one is great. That kind of like therapist kind of relationship. I think for majority of humans though, the community commands you to elevate yourself. And when you have that community aspect, you see other people doing more. You see yourself like that other person because you're like, just like you said, you're like, well, yeah, dude, Sharon tripped. Like, whoa, like the first time you see your mentor stutter, the first time you see your mentor, right? Like not be perfect, right? Like I did the project with Bedros. I was lucky enough that I got kicked out the first time and I had to go back and do it a second time.
I was amazed. Like when you said you're doing it again, I was like, man, you're a beast.
Well, it's that high say to do ratio, right? So at the end of my journey at the project, right? And it's a 75 hours men's development, right? And the way they develop you is they break you down through physical pain, through your threshold, and you have to flip a switch, right? You have to internally be the person that can learn to flip the switch. And we were at 50 hours. I mean, the hard shit was done. At that point, it was all the mental game. And I couldn't flip the mental switch off. And because of that, physically, I was prepared. Mentally and emotionally, though, bro, like I wasn't able to flip the switch off to just be a part of the group. I wanted to be the leader. I needed to show dominance every step of the way.
Ah,
And I couldn't set myself back to be right. Like I think it's in the Marines, like sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, depending on where you fall in line. Because if two guys go into that room and you're number three, you're now the leader, not the follower. And so and then we all come back and these guys come out of the door right there. Now you're following them. Steve, it was either Steve or Ray who talked about it. Like at some points in your life, you're the leader. At some points in life, you're the follower. And I couldn't let myself drop out of that leader role because my ego wouldn't allow me. And so there's 14 guys. It's 12 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. All the big trucks are bright lights. And they're like, Vic, you need to leave. You need to go home and do work on yourself. Like it's not a physical thing. It's a head thing. And I remember, Aaron pulled me aside. It was the original crew. And he said, bro, like you need to go home. He's like, I'm telling you this as a big brother because him and I, Aaron's the nice guy as a group, right? And I looked every single person in the eye and every person in class 002. And I said, I will be back. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I will be back. For a year and a half, I hired Bedros right after that to coach me one-on-one.
mm-hmm.
And he says, I can't work with you, Vic. And I go, why? He says, because you won't allow yourself to see yourself as an equal to me until you finish the project. He's like, so I'm going to gift you the project. Just work with Joan. I'm going to gift it to you because I didn't have the money at the time to spend another 10 grand on the project, right? I spent 10 grand. I was paying Bedros 50. I didn't have any money. I was broke, like literally broke. And he never, the cool thing about Bedros, like you said, he's a big teddy bear. Like a lot of people would never know this about him.
Right.
He never made me feel less than. He allowed me to feel who I needed to be to elevate my discipline, right? Or to elevate my system, to elevate my ecosystem, to elevate who I was. And I went back, I finished the project and, Steve, who was the toughest guy there was like, all right, you went through some transformation in the last 12 months. I don't know what it was, but you came back and you're not the same person. Right. And it's exactly what you say. It's the community that drove hey, you don't need to try to be on top all the time because you're never going to be on top. There's always somebody out there who's going to do more, better, faster. And maybe you have the most money in the world, which I won't, but there's going to be somebody who's got a better body. There's going to be somebody who's got a hotter this. There's going to be somebody, the rooms create the environment. So like when you're alone though, how do you create that for yourself?
So there's a great concept in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill about, creating the mastermind in your mind. And what I do is I create mentorship in my mind. So, one of my coaching
You have
clients,
like a virtual advisory board in your brain?
I do. It's like, hey, any faith-based person that's ever worn a "What would Jesus do" has done it. Like you just think, whoa, what would this person do? You might think, what would Jesus do? You might think, what would Bedros do? What would Vikram do? What would Craig do? What would, Sarah Blakely do? What would Martha do? Pick your person. And so, So like recently, one of my coaching clients, they got a bit of, they do non-surgical orthopedic, stem cell stuff, and they run a big clinic in Arizona, and they have to have a difficult meeting with their team about a few issues. And he said, how do you prepare yourself, to speak optimistically in front of the group when you know what's going on, and you know that some people are not going to like the message. And I actually had to refer him to our head leadership coach in our business, because he would give him a better answer. Because all I would say is, I would do what Bedros would expect me to do. And how do you download that? But that's, Bedros would expect me to show up. He'd expect me to have great energy. He'd expect me to praise people. He'd expect me to never put anybody in a lower position. And he'd expect me to speak confident and clearly. And he gave me this advice years ago. He goes, Craigie, in your videos, you got to have a James Bond half-cocked smile. Like, he said that all the time, because I'm very serious in my videos, and I would remember that, and I would do it. And even when we have our events, like I sell $35,000 coaching mastermind from stage at
Right.
our events. And
Nice.
I just think, what would Bedros do in this situation? How would he design the presentation? How, when I do it, what feedback would he give me? He would tell me to do this. I got to change this. This is my natural version. And so I just run that system, and I run it through everything from, like, on the days when, it's time to get up and it's been a rough night with the kids, and I'm like, I don't want to get up. Bedros's quote is, every time you hit snooze, you're telling your hopes and dreams that they can wait. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get up, and away I go. So I just have that in my head all the time around important things in my life. And, sometimes it's him, and sometimes it's some of the other individuals that I have. Even Sharon pops in from once in a while. So you can have it. You can keep it going if you are committed to it. But it's also important to have these people in your head a little bit, actually, with, audio, podcasts, whatever it needs to be, as a sharpener, because you need that to defend against the average of the 5 people that you're around on a day-to-day basis.
Dude, I used to have in my old office, I used to have the pictures of the people who were my mentors, and my desk is here, and they're right on the top, at the very top of the wall. There was like a vision board that I used to stare at. And then on the top, it was like, my grandpa, my uncle, I think Tony Robbins was up there. And it's funny because I ended up, like, a lot of those things ended up coming true, where I got to actually work with those people, and they actually became mentors, because you just think about it all the time. Like, what would, I don't know Tony, but if he was there, what would he say? What would they say? I didn't know Bedros or you at that time back in the real estate days, right? Sharon was up there, right? What would Sharon say in this situation? What would he do here? And I built, because of the book, I built my virtual advisory board. I just put pictures up there as well.
Nice.
And when I wanted to, people would catch me sleeping at my desk, because I'd get up really early and I'd take a midday nap, and they'd catch me sleeping at my desk with, like, my headset on. And there's, like, photos of me with my headset on, and they're like, yo, Vic, we caught you sleeping. And I was like, and I always have a pen and paper, and I'd be like, there's my stats, bro. 275 dials by 11 o'clock. I took a half-hour nap. You damn well believe I did. I got 3 appointments in the afternoon I need to be ready for.
That's right, man. That's how you do it.
If you're brand new and you're just starting out, or you're struggling, right? Maybe you're not even struggling, right? But you've kind of reached that mental cap, right? Like, there's a lot of people that are doing well, but they feel like they're struggling now because they've hit that cap, that plateau, right? They're doing $500,000 a year, but now they're like, I want to do 750, or I want to do $1 million. They don't know how to get there, because, like, the things that got you to $500,000 don't get you to $1 million.
What got you here won't get you there.
What would you say to them as we're kind of wrapping up? Damn, we've been going for almost an hour.
Yeah.
What would you say to them, as they're kind of like, well, is it even, because a lot of times what you hear, and I would assume because people are the same, regardless of industries, it's like, is it even worth it? Right? Because you get comfortable, you don't know what to do. You just like, is it even worth going for that bigger number? Or should we just be, like, content where we're at, even though they're not content?
Mhm.
What would you say to somebody like that?
Yeah, there's a great Jim Rohn quote from years and years ago, and it goes like this. It's you don't aim to become a millionaire for the money. You aim to become a millionaire for the person that you become to become a millionaire. Like, you all of a sudden are a much greater impact in your community. You're a much better mother, father, husband, wife. You're so much better when you've developed the system skills, confidence, positive attitude, resilience to be able to ascend to that level. And so the way to do it is, if you want to get to 750, go hang around people making $1.5 million. That's 2 million. Those people will get you to that 750 so fast, and they'll change you because they'll change how you operate. And that's the secret to success in life. Everything in life is easier when you spend more time with good people.
We didn't talk about your book. We talked about hanging out with better people the whole time, and
It's a key component of it, though, because everybody thinks that if you want to change your life, if you have to lose weight, you have to do things that you absolutely hate. What if you did things with healthy people? What if you just spent time with people that were 20 pounds lighter than you? Well, eventually your habits would change. Like, you wouldn't even know it. It's like how you said, man, the hour's gone by. You didn't even know it because you were around something that was positive. And if you spend more time with positive people, and you spend more time with people who have already achieved your goal, the goal will come to you. And so that is the effortless discipline systems that are available to everybody. And it is a huge component of our book. So, check out the book, darksideofdiscipline.com. Also on Amazon, audiobook, ebook, paperback, hard copy. It's all there.
I love how you tied that actually back in, is that one of the components of discipline to make it effortless is you really kind of put a bow tie on why you change your friends. People are like, well, I don't want to leave those people behind. Well, you're not leaving them behind. You're just evolving to your next step. And the reason why
some of them will come along. Some of them will. It's all right.
And some of them won't. And and both are okay.
Yes.
But you're the reason you're doing the elevation of your friends is because it's not just you become the average of the 5 people. It's because it gives you that effortless, constant reminder, and your reticulating activating system, the RAS in your brain, is seeing, oh, okay, Craig wakes up at 5 o'clock every day, no matter what. And when Craig wakes up at 5 o'clock, Craig, what do you do at 5 o'clock? I go to the gym. Oh, okay. Bedros, what do you do at 5 o'clock? I take my protein, I take my electrolytes. Craig told me to drink 32 ounces of water. So I drink my 32 ounces of water. I sit down on my computer. I let the dog out. The dog does its business. I have my cup of coffee and I sit down and I work for 90 minutes in the living room before the family gets up between 5 and 6:30. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's a model of life.
Right.
Okay, well, if I just do that, even though I don't know what I'm going to put in that 90-minute block because I've never done it, I'll grab a cup of coffee. I'll sit down. I'll let the dog out. I'll go pee. I'll drink my 32 ounces of water because that's what Bedros now said, because it goes from Craig to Bedros. I'll put my electrolytes in it, and somebody, because that's what he does. And I'll sit down, I'll stare at my computer, and all of a sudden you start like, oh, I have this to do. I have that to do. I have this to do. I have that to do. Okay. You start doing it. And a month goes by, and all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, I just did 4 deals this month. And I didn't even know how it happened. And you're like, well, just look back at what you did. You woke up an hour earlier and you modeled somebody that was put into your ecosystem, and you have effortless discipline.
Yep.
Bro, if people wanted to follow you, where do they follow you?
Instagram at Real Craig Ballantyne, or LinkedIn Craig Ballantyne.
You guys, if you got some value from this, and if you're not following Craig, yes, some of his videos, he's a little bit more serious than maybe I am. He will allow you to model him. He will allow you to insert that effortless discipline into your life so that you can live the life you want, not the life that you think you deserve. Craig, thank you so much, brother. As always, I appreciate you.
Thank you.